What if the greatest knowledge in human history was never destroyed, only hidden? Ancient texts speak of a time before our civilizations, a time when Atlantis ruled the world with advanced wisdom, powerful energy, and secrets that could change humanity forever. But as Atlantis began to fall, one being saw the disaster coming. His name was Thoth. According to the Emerald Tablets, Thoth did not just watch Atlantis sink. He protected something: hidden records, sacred knowledge, truths about the universe, the mind, and the true origins of mankind. Some believe these records were sealed away in secret chambers, waiting for the right time to be revealed. Others say they were hidden to protect humanity from misusing their power. The warning was clear: knowledge is sacred, but pride destroys. Atlantis had risen to dazzling heights, yet its downfall came not from lack of wisdom, but from arrogance. Thoth understood that if humanity were to inherit this knowledge too soon, it would repeat the same mistakes. So he concealed the records, embedding fragments in myths, rituals, and symbols scattered across cultures. The question remains: what was so dangerous about this knowledge that it had to be hidden? Was it the ability to harness energy beyond imagination, to shape reality with thought, or to align civilizations with the stars themselves? And if these records still exist today, who is guarding them? Tonight, we begin the journey into the hidden records of Atlantis, the warnings of Thoth, and the knowledge that was never meant to be found. If you love mythology and history from all cultures and forbidden ancient stories, subscribe, because this channel reveals the secrets behind every myth. And let me know where you're watching from, whether it's a quiet corner in Hollywood, a noisy dorm in London, or sneaking a listen at work in Toronto. Don't worry, I won't tell your boss, unless they're also into Atlantis. Atlantis was never just a city. It was a legend that grew larger and more magnificent with every retelling. Ancient philosophers, priests, and storytellers all spoke of it as a place truly beyond imagination, a land where wisdom and power walked hand in hand. Its towers were said to gleam like pure crystal, its streets were paved with polished marble, and its people were guided by knowledge so advanced it felt almost divine. Centuries later, the philosopher Plato described Atlantis as a mighty island nation located just beyond the Pillars of Hercules. He painted a picture of a civilization rich in resources and unmatched in its military strength. For Plato, Atlantis was both a distant memory and a serious warning, a society that rose too high and fell far too hard. But even before Plato, whispers of this lost land lingered in ancient myths of great floods, powerful gods, and cycles of destruction and rebirth. The legend paints Atlantis as a civilization far beyond its time. Its people were said to harness energy not through fire or stone, but through vibration, frequency, and sacred geometry. They aligned their magnificent temples with the stars, built structures that mirrored cosmic order, and truly believed that thought itself had the power to shape reality. To outsiders, Atlantis must have seemed eternal. To those who lived within its walls, it must have felt like destiny. Yet, legends are not only about glory, they are also about caution. Atlantis is remembered not just for its brilliance, but for its dramatic downfall. Pride crept into its gleaming towers, arrogance echoed in its sacred chants, and a deep imbalance spread throughout its people. The legend became a timeless story of rise and fall, a powerful reminder that even the greatest civilizations can collapse when wisdom is forgotten and misused. Today, Atlantis lives on, not in underwater ruins, but in our collective memory. Its legend has been carried across cultures, disguised in myths of floods, gods, and other lost lands. Whether it was a real place or a powerful symbol, Atlantis remains the most enduring tale of human ambition, a city that reached for the stars but, tragically, forgot the ground beneath its feet. Atlantis wasn't just a city of stone and sea. It was a civilization that seemed to leap centuries ahead of the rest of the world. While other cultures were still figuring out how to tame fire and carve simple tools, Atlantis was said to have mastered sciences that blurred the line between magic and technology. Its people understood energy in ways that remain a complete mystery even today. They believed vibration was the key to creation, that sound could heal, and that geometry was not just mathematics, but a sacred language of the universe. Their temples were perfectly aligned with distant constellations, their very streets designed to channel Earth's natural energy, and their daily rituals were filled with chants that resonated with cosmic rhythms. At least in its golden age, Atlantean society thrived on a beautiful sense of balance. Farmers worked alongside astronomers, healers shared their knowledge with philosophers, and builders consulted with priests. In Atlantis, knowledge wasn't hoarded away, it was shared freely, and wisdom was considered the highest form of wealth. Their advancements in medicine, architecture, and astronomy were so profound that later civilizations would inherit mere fragments of them and call them miracles. Think about that for a moment. Legends describe Atlantean ships that navigated the vast oceans guided only by the stars, incredible towers that glowed with harnessed energy, and libraries filled with records of the entire cosmos. To any outsider, Atlantis must have seemed like a waking dream. To its own people, it was living proof that humanity could rise to truly extraordinary heights when guided by wisdom and cooperation. But even in its brilliance, Atlantis carried the seeds of its own downfall. Because a civilization that's so far beyond its time is also a civilization vulnerable to a dangerous flaw: pride. The very knowledge that made Atlantis great would one day test its humility. And, as we'll explore, when that humility finally faltered, the delicate balance that held their world together would begin to break. Atlantis did not simply grow, it soared. From a modest island kingdom, it expanded into a civilization that seemed to command both land and sea. Its harbors bustled with ships that crossed oceans guided by the stars. Its markets overflowed with goods from distant lands, and its temples glowed with energy harnessed from sources still mysterious to us today. The Atlanteans believed themselves chosen, guardians of wisdom that connected humanity to the cosmos. They mastered architecture, building towers that seemed to defy gravity, and they cultivated sciences that blurred the line between the physical and the spiritual. Their priests spoke of vibration as the essence of creation. Their astronomers charted cycles with astonishing precision, and their healers used sound and energy to restore balance in the body. Power was not only technological but cultural. Atlantean influence spread across neighboring lands, shaping myths, rituals, and philosophies. Their ships carried not just goods, but ideas, embedding fragments of their wisdom into distant cultures. To outsiders, Atlantis appeared invincible, a beacon of progress and prosperity. Yet with power came ambition. The Atlanteans began to see themselves not only as guardians of wisdom, but as rulers destined to dominate. Their pride grew louder than their humility. and their balance began to tilt. The very knowledge that had lifted them above others became a tool for control, and whispers of imbalance echoed through their temples. The rise of Atlantean power was dazzling, but it carried within it the seeds of collapse. For a civilization that believes itself eternal often forgets the fragility of balance, and Atlantis was no exception. Atlantis was not remembered only for its towers or its ships, but for the knowledge that seemed to lift humanity into a new age. The Atlanteans believed wisdom was the highest form of wealth, and they cultivated sciences that touched every corner of life. Their discoveries were not simply practical, they were transformative. They understood the stars as more than distant lights. To them, constellations were maps of cycles, guides for navigation, and symbols of cosmic order. Their astronomers charted movements with precision that later civilizations would inherit and marvel at. Farmers planted by these rhythms, sailors crossed oceans with confidence, and priests aligned temples to mirror the heavens. Atlantean healers worked with sound and vibration, believing that the body was an instrument that could be tuned. They used chants and resonant tones to restore balance, embedding fragments of this practice into traditions that would echo in India's mantras and Egypt's rituals. To them, medicine was not only physical but energetic, a harmony between mind, body, and spirit. Their builders used geometry not just for design but as a sacred science. Structures were aligned to channel energy, to resonate with the earth, and to reflect cosmic patterns. Later, civilizations would inherit fragments of this: pyramids, temples, and monuments that still puzzle modern researchers. Perhaps most profound was their understanding of the human mind. The Atlanteans believed thought itself was creative, shaping reality in subtle ways. They taught that consciousness was not confined to the body, but connected to the universe, a truth that would echo in philosophies and spiritual traditions across the world. This knowledge changed humanity, though not always in obvious ways. Fragments of Atlantean wisdom were scattered across cultures, disguised as myth, ritual, or tradition. What seemed like superstition was often a faint echo of a science too advanced to be understood. Atlantis may have fallen, but its knowledge lived on, quietly shaping the course of civilizations that followed. For all its brilliance, Atlantis began to show cracks beneath the surface. The signs of destruction were subtle at first, like whispers carried on the wind. Storms grew stronger, the seas more restless, and the earth trembled in ways that priests could no longer ignore. Astronomers charted unusual movements in the heavens, cycles that seemed to warn of imbalance. Farmers noticed their crops failing despite careful alignment with the stars, and healers found their chants less effective as the harmony of the land faltered. Thoth, ever watchful, saw these signs more clearly than most. He understood that the collapse of balance was not caused by nature alone, but by the pride of Atlantis itself. The people had begun to misuse their knowledge, turning sacred sciences into tools of domination. Energy once used for healing was redirected toward power. Geometry, once aligned with the cosmos, was twisted into monuments of arrogance. Thought, once creative, became corrupted by ambition. The warnings grew louder. Floods swept across coastal lands. Earthquakes shook the foundations of temples, and the skies seemed to darken with foreboding. Yet many Atlanteans dismissed these signs, believing their civilization too mighty to fall. Pride drowned out humility, and arrogance silenced caution. Thoth knew that destruction was inevitable. He warned the people, but few listened. The signs of collapse were everywhere, yet Atlantis marched forward as though eternal. The lantern of wisdom flickered, and the shadow of downfall grew longer. The stage was set for the fall, a fall that would echo across myths and cultures for millennia. The brilliance of Atlantis could not shield it from the weight of its own pride. What began as whispers of imbalance soon grew into storms that shook the very foundations of the island. The seas rose higher, the earth trembled more violently, and the skies darkened with signs that even the most stubborn could no longer ignore. The Atlanteans, once humble guardians of wisdom, had turned their sacred sciences into tools of domination. Energy that once healed was redirected toward power. Geometry that once aligned with the cosmos was twisted into monuments of arrogance. Thought, once creative and pure, became corrupted by ambition. The harmony that sustained Atlantis was broken, and the consequences were swift. Temples cracked under the weight of earthquakes, harbors flooded with relentless waves, and crops failed despite careful alignment with the stars. Priests warned of collapse, astronomers charted ominous cycles, and healers spoke of imbalance that could not be restored. Yet many Atlanteans clung to their pride, insisting their civilization was too mighty to fall. Thoth, watching with sorrow, knew the end had begun. He saw that the destruction was not only natural, but moral, a collapse born from arrogance. The lantern of wisdom flickered, and the shadow of downfall stretched across the land. The fall of Atlantis was not a single moment, but a series of unrest. Each storm, each tremor, each failure was a reminder that even the greatest civilizations can crumble when they forget the balance that sustains them. The beginning of the end had arrived, and Atlantis was stepping into its own legend, a story of rise, brilliance, and inevitable fall. As the storms grew louder and the ground trembled beneath Atlantis, Thoth understood that the end was no longer a distant possibility, but an approaching certainty. While others clung to pride, insisting their civilization was too mighty to fall, Thoth prepared for what truly mattered, the preservation of wisdom. He knew that the towers, the ships, and the wealth of Atlantis would be swallowed by the sea. What could endure was not stone or gold, but knowledge, the sacred truths about the stars, the human mind, and the energies that bound the universe together. These were not treasures to be flaunted, but lanterns to guide future generations. Thoth's mission was urgent. He gathered scrolls, tablets, and symbols, embedding fragments of wisdom into forms that could survive the collapse. Some records were entrusted to chosen survivors, disguised as myths and rituals. Others were hidden in chambers, sealed away with geometry and vibration, so that only the patient and humble could uncover them. He instructed the survivors to scatter across the world, carrying fragments of Atlantis into Egypt, Greece, India, and the Americas. They were not to declare themselves Atlanteans, but to blend into cultures, becoming priests, philosophers, and sages. Their task was not to rule, but to protect, not to dominate, but to preserve. Thoth's urgent mission was not about saving a city, but about saving humanity from forgetting. He understood that civilizations rise and fall, but wisdom must endure. The records he protected were not meant to dazzle or dominate. They were meant to remind. Atlantis would sink, but its essence would live on, hidden, waiting, and protected by those who carried Thoth's lantern into the future. As Atlantis trembled on the edge of collapse, Thoth turned his focus to what mattered most, the preservation of wisdom. He knew that towers would crumble, ships would sink, and wealth would vanish beneath the waves. But knowledge, sacred, powerful, and eternal, could endure if hidden carefully. The secret records were not ordinary scrolls or tablets. They were repositories of truths about the stars, the human mind, and the energies that bound the universe together. Some were inscribed on stone, others encoded in symbols, and many disguised in rituals so that only the patient and humble could uncover them. Thoth entrusted these records to chosen survivors, instructing them to scatter across the world. Egypt received fragments embedded in temple alignments and hieroglyphs. Greece inherited philosophies echoing Atlantean balance. India carried chants resonating with vibration science, while the Americas preserved astronomy in calendars that tracked cosmic cycles. Each culture received pieces of the puzzle, never the whole, ensuring that no single people could misuse the full power. The records were hidden in chambers, sealed with geometry and vibration, designed to resist time and secrecy. Some whispered that beneath the sands of Egypt, or within forgotten ruins, lie vaults filled with Atlantean wisdom, waiting for rediscovery. Others believed the records were disguised as myths, stories told to children, or rituals performed without knowing their deeper meaning. Thoth's mission was not to save Atlantis, but to save humanity from forgetting. The secret records were his lantern, carried across generations, disguised in plain sight, and protected by those who understood that wisdom must be honored with humility. Atlantis would sink, but its essence would live on, hidden, waiting, and eternal. The secret records of Atlantis were not ordinary scrolls or dusty ledgers of trade. They were repositories of wisdom, so profound that Thoth feared their misuse more than the destruction of the island itself. Within them lay truths about the universe, the human mind, and the energies that bind all things together. The records contained knowledge of the stars, charting cycles with precision that guided navigation, agriculture, and even the rise and fall of civilizations. They described constellations not as distant lights, but as cosmic maps, mirrors of order that humanity was meant to follow. They held secrets of the human mind, teaching that thought itself was creative, shaping reality in subtle ways. Consciousness was described as a force connected to the universe, not confined to the body. These teachings hinted at powers that could heal, inspire, or destroy, depending on the heart of the one who wielded them. Energy and sacred science filled the records, explaining vibration as the essence of creation. Sound was shown to heal, geometry to align, and balance to sustain. Structures were designed not only for beauty, but to resonate with the earth and cosmos, channeling forces invisible yet powerful. The records also contained warnings. They reminded that wisdom must be honored with humility, that pride corrupts, and that misuse of knowledge leads to collapse. Atlantis itself was proof of this truth, a civilization undone by arrogance despite its brilliance. Thoth ensured that these records were scattered, disguised, and hidden. Some were embedded in myths, others in rituals, and many sealed in chambers designed to resist time. To the uninitiated, they looked like superstition or decoration. To the sincere seeker, they were doorways into deeper truths. What these records contained was not simply information, but guidance, a lantern meant to illuminate humanity's path, provided it was carried with humility. Atlantis may have fallen, but its wisdom endured, waiting patiently for those who could read between the lines. Among the most profound treasures preserved in the secret records was the knowledge of the stars. To the Atlanteans, the heavens were not distant lights scattered across the night sky. They were maps, guides, and living symbols of cosmic order. Every constellation carried meaning, every cycle revealed a rhythm, and every movement of the heavens was a message for those who could read it. Atlantean astronomers charted the stars with astonishing precision. They understood equinoxes and solstices, the slow drift of constellations, and the great cycles that shaped the rise and fall of civilizations. Their temples were aligned with celestial events, their calendars tracked cosmic rhythms, and their rituals mirrored the dance of the heavens. This knowledge was not only practical but spiritual. Farmers planted by the stars, sailors navigated oceans with their guidance, and priests used celestial alignments to open gateways of energy. To the Atlanteans, the stars were not passive. They were active forces, shaping destiny and reminding humanity of its place in the universe. Fragments of this wisdom survived in later cultures. The Egyptians aligned pyramids with Orion. The Mayans tracked Venus with astonishing accuracy, and the Greeks built philosophies around celestial harmony. Each culture carried echoes of Atlantean star knowledge, disguised as myth, ritual, or philosophy. The records taught that humanity must live in rhythm with the cosmos. When civilizations aligned with the stars, they thrived. When they ignored them, imbalance followed. Atlantis itself was proof of this truth, a civilization that rose by honoring cosmic order, but fell when pride severed its harmony. The knowledge of the stars was not simply about navigation or calendars. It was a reminder that humanity is part of a greater design, a cosmic symphony where balance is the key to survival. Atlantis may have vanished, but its star wisdom still shines, waiting for those who look beyond the surface of the night sky. Among the most mysterious treasures preserved in the Atlantean records were the teachings about the human mind. To the Atlanteans, the mind was not simply a tool for thought. It was a force of creation, a bridge between humanity and the cosmos. They believed consciousness extended beyond the body, connected to the rhythms of the universe. Thought was not passive but active, shaping reality in subtle ways. A single idea, when focused with clarity and intention, could influence energy, matter, and even destiny. This was the essence of Atlantean wisdom. The mind was a creative power, not merely a reflection of the world, but a participant in its design. Atlantean priests taught that imagination was a doorway, memory a reservoir of hidden truths, and dreams a channel to higher realms. Meditation and ritual were not just spiritual practices, but sciences of the mind, designed to align thought with cosmic order. In their temples, chants and symbols were used to focus consciousness, unlocking states of awareness that modern science still struggles to explain. Fragments of this knowledge survived in later traditions. The yogis of India spoke of the mind as a tool for liberation. Egyptian priests encoded mental discipline in hieroglyphs and rituals. Greek philosophers debated the nature of thought and reality, echoing Atlantean teachings in their dialogues. Even in indigenous cultures, the idea that dreams and visions carry truth reflects this ancient wisdom. But the records also carried warnings. The mind, they taught, is a double-edged sword. When guided by humility, it creates harmony. When corrupted by pride, it distorts reality and leads to destruction. Atlantis itself was proof of this danger. A civilization undone not by lack of knowledge, but by misuse of the mind's power. The secrets of the human mind were perhaps the most dangerous of all Atlantean teachings, for within them lay the ability to shape worlds, heal or destroy, and connect humanity to forces far greater than itself. Hidden in myths and rituals, these truths still whisper to us today, waiting for those who seek with sincerity rather than ambition. Of all the treasures preserved in the Atlantean records, none were more mysterious than their understanding of energy. To the Atlanteans, energy was not simply fire, wind, or water. It was the invisible essence that flowed through all things, the sacred force that bound the universe together. They believed vibration was the key to creation. Every sound, every movement, every geometric form carried resonance, shaping the world in ways both subtle and profound. Their temples were not only places of worship, but instruments of energy, designed with precision to channel cosmic forces. Walls aligned with the stars, chambers echoed with chants, and structures vibrated with harmony that modern science still struggles to explain. Atlantean healers used sound as medicine. They believed the body was an instrument that could be tuned, and illness was simply a note out of balance. Through chants, tones, and resonant frequencies, they restored harmony, embedding fragments of this practice into traditions that would echo in mantras, hymns, and rituals across cultures. Geometry was their sacred science. To them, shapes were not just designs, but living symbols. The circle represented eternity, the triangle balance, and the spiral, the unfolding of creation. By embedding these forms into architecture, they believed they could mirror the order of the cosmos and invite its energy into human life. Fragments of this wisdom survived in later civilizations. The pyramids of Egypt, the stone circles of Europe, the temples of India, and the calendars of the Mayans all carried echoes of Atlantean energy science. What seemed like superstition was often a faint memory of a deeper truth, but the records carried warnings. Energy was sacred, and misuse led to imbalance. Atlantis itself proved this, a civilization that rose by honoring energy, but fell when it turned sacred science into a tool of domination. The Atlantean teachings remind us that energy is not only power, but responsibility. It is the invisible thread that connects humanity to the cosmos, a force that can heal or destroy, depending on how it is used. Hidden in myths and monuments, this sacred science still whispers to us, waiting for those who seek balance rather than control. The wisdom of Atlantis was dazzling, but it was also dangerous. Thoth understood that knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can illuminate or it can destroy, depending on the heart of the one who wields it. The records contained truths about energy, the stars, and the human mind powers that could heal civilizations or corrupt them beyond repair. Atlantis itself was proof of this danger. The very sciences that once sustained harmony were twisted into tools of domination. Energy was redirected toward control, geometry turned into monuments of arrogance, and thought corrupted by ambition. Pride had poisoned wisdom, and imbalance had invited destruction. Thoth realized that if humanity inherited this knowledge too soon, it would repeat the same mistakes. So he concealed the records, scattering fragments across cultures, disguising them as myths, rituals, and symbols. He sealed chambers with geometry and vibration, ensuring that only those who sought with humility could unlock them. The knowledge was hidden not to punish humanity, but to protect it. Wisdom without balance is chaos, and power without humility is ruin. By veiling the records, Thoth gave humanity time to grow, to learn, and to prepare for the responsibility of wielding such truths. This is why the knowledge was hidden, not because it was false, but because it was too true, too powerful, too dangerous in the hands of pride. Atlantis had fallen, but its wisdom endured, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to honor it with humility rather than ambition. When Atlantis sank beneath the waves, its wisdom did not vanish entirely. According to legend, Thoth concealed the most sacred records in hidden chambers, sealed with geometry and vibration, so that only the worthy could uncover them. These chambers were not ordinary vaults, but sanctuaries of knowledge, designed to resist time, secrecy, and even human greed. The theory of hidden chambers has fascinated seekers for centuries. Some believe they lie beneath the sands of Egypt, encoded in the design of the pyramids. Others suggest they are buried deep within forgotten ruins, disguised as temples or caves. A few even claim they exist in places untouched by modern civilization, waiting for discovery when humanity is ready. The chambers were said to contain the Emerald Tablets, records of cosmic truths, and maps of the stars. They may hold instructions for harnessing energy, understanding the mind, and aligning with the universe. But they were also designed with safeguards, traps of geometry and resonance that would confuse or repel those who sought knowledge for selfish gain. Fragments of this theory appear in myths across cultures. Egyptian priests spoke of secret halls beneath temples. Greek philosophers hinted at mysteries hidden in sacred sites. Indigenous traditions told of caves where wisdom was stored, guarded by spirits or gods. Each story may be a faint echo of the Atlantean chambers scattered across the world like pieces of a puzzle. The hidden chambers theory is not only about physical vaults, but about spiritual readiness. Thoth's design ensured that the records would remain concealed until humanity matured enough to honor them with humility. The chambers were not meant to be broken into, but unlocked, not by force, but by wisdom. Whether buried beneath stone, hidden in myth, or encoded in ritual, the chambers remind us that true knowledge is never lost. It waits, silent and patient, for those who seek not with pride, but with reverence. Atlantis may have fallen, but its secrets remain hidden, guarded, and eternal. The question that has haunted seekers for centuries is simple yet profound. Could the records of Atlantis still exist today? If Thoth truly concealed the wisdom of his people in hidden chambers, then somewhere in the world, beneath stone or sand, lies knowledge that could change humanity forever. Some believe the records are buried beneath the sands of Egypt, encoded in the design of the pyramids and temples. Others suggest they are hidden deep within forgotten ruins across the Americas, disguised as sacred caves or monuments. A few even claim they rest in places untouched by modern civilization, waiting for discovery when humanity is ready. Archaeologists have uncovered hints, unexplained alignments, sealed chambers, and inscriptions that seem to point toward something greater. Myths across cultures speak of hidden halls, secret scrolls, and wisdom guarded by gods or spirits. These echoes may be fragments of Atlantean truth scattered across the world like pieces of a puzzle. But perhaps the records are not only physical. Some traditions suggest they were encoded in stories, rituals, and symbols hidden in plain sight. The myths of floods, the chants of priests, the geometry of temples, all may carry fragments of Atlantean wisdom disguised as culture. In this way, the records could exist everywhere, waiting for those who know how to read between the lines. Could they still exist today? The answer may be yes, but not in the way most imagine. Whether buried in stone chambers or hidden in myths, the wisdom of Atlantis endures. It waits patiently, guarded by secrecy and time, until humanity proves it can honor knowledge with humility rather than ambition. Atlantis may have fallen, but its records may still whisper to us in ruins, in rituals, and in the stars above. The question is not only whether they exist, but whether we are ready to find them. Though Atlantis itself was lost to the sea, echoes of its wisdom can be traced in the cultures that followed. These fragments, scattered across civilizations, serve as clues, faint reminders of a knowledge too vast to vanish completely. Egypt carried perhaps the strongest echoes: the alignment of the pyramids with Orion's belt, the precision of their temples, and the myths of Thoth himself suggest a direct inheritance of Atlantean star knowledge and sacred geometry. Egyptian priests spoke of hidden halls and secret records, whispers that may point to Atlantean chambers buried beneath the sands. Greece preserved fragments in philosophy. Plato's account of Atlantis was not merely a story, but a memory of a civilization whose wisdom shaped Greek thought. Concepts of cosmic harmony, balance, and the dangers of pride echo Atlantean teachings, woven into dialogues that still influence philosophy today. India carried the science of vibration and sound. Mantras, chants, and meditation practices reflect Atlantean healing methods, treating the body as an instrument to be tuned. The Vedic texts speak of cosmic cycles and energies that mirror Atlantean star wisdom. The Americas hold clues in their calendars and monuments. The Mayans tracked Venus with astonishing accuracy, while the Incas aligned structures with celestial events. Myths of floods and lost civilizations echo the memory of Atlantis, preserved in oral traditions across tribes and nations. Indigenous cultures worldwide tell stories of great floods, sky gods, and hidden wisdom. These myths, though varied, share striking similarities, suggesting they may be fragments of a shared memory of Atlantis. Taken together, these clues form a mosaic. No single culture holds the whole truth, but each carries a piece of the puzzle. Geometry, astronomy, vibration, and myth all point back to a source that may have been Atlantis. The records were scattered intentionally, hidden in plain sight, so that humanity could rediscover them slowly, piece by piece. Ancient cultures are not just remnants of the past. They are guardians of Atlantean wisdom, keeping alive the memory of a civilization that fell but refused to be forgotten. The legend of Atlantis continues to inspire scholars, explorers, and dreamers. Modern researchers have proposed a wide range of theories, each attempting to explain Plato's account and the enduring fascination with this lost civilization. Major theories: allegory theory. Many historians argue that Plato invented Atlantis as a philosophical allegory, a cautionary tale about hubris, greed, and imbalance. In this view, Atlantis was never real, but a symbolic story meant to teach moral lessons. Historical memory theory. Some researchers believe Atlantis may have been inspired by real events, such as the eruption of Terra Santorini around 1600 BCE, which devastated the Minoan civilization. This catastrophic event could have been remembered and mythologized into the Atlantis story. Geographical relocation theory. Others suggest Atlantis might have been a real place, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, as Plato described. Candidates include islands in the Atlantic Ocean, the Azores, or even parts of the Caribbean. Lost civilization theory. A more speculative group of researchers propose that Atlantis was a highly advanced civilization, with technology and wisdom far beyond its time. They argue that fragments of Atlantean knowledge survived in Egypt, India, and the Americas. Mythical archetype theory. Some anthropologists view Atlantis as part of a broader flood myth archetype. Nearly every culture has stories of great floods and lost civilizations, suggesting Atlantis may be one version of a universal human memory. Atlantis remains compelling because it sits at the intersection of myth, history, and mystery. Whether allegory or reality, it symbolizes humanity's longing for a golden age and the fear of losing it through arrogance. Modern researchers continue to debate, but the allure of Atlantis lies not only in whether it existed, but in what it represents, the fragile balance between wisdom and pride. As the waves rose higher and the tremors shook Atlantis to its core, Thoth spoke his final warning. His voice carried not only across the temples, but into the hearts of those who still listened. He reminded them that wisdom without humility becomes arrogance, and power without balance becomes destruction. Thoth's words were not curses, but cautions. He urged humanity to remember that the stars guide, the mind creates, and energy sustains, but only when honored with reverence. He warned that civilizations rise and fall, and that Atlantis itself was proof of what happens when pride outweighs balance. His final message was simple yet eternal: guard wisdom with humility. Seek balance in all things, for knowledge is a lantern. It can light the way, or it can burn the world. And with that, Atlantis sank, but Thoth's warning endured. It echoed in myths, rituals, and philosophies across cultures, disguised yet alive. The records were hidden, the chambers sealed, but the lesson remained. Humanity must choose whether to honor wisdom or repeat the downfall of Atlantis. And so, the story of Atlantis drifts into silence, like waves fading against the shore. The lantern of Thoth still flickers, waiting for seekers who walk with humility. Perhaps the records remain, perhaps they are only whispers, but the warning is timeless. Close your eyes now, let the stars guide your dreams. And remember, wisdom is always waiting for those who seek it with reverence. Atlantis sleeps beneath the sea, and so too shall we. Good night.